You know, life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. I was sitting in the kitchen, sipping on my morning coffee, planning the surprise birthday party I'd set up for my wife, Jenna. She was turning 35, and I had spared no expense. I'd hired a caterer, decorated the house, and even bought her a special gift, one that would surely make her feel loved and appreciated. After all, I figured, we've been through so much together, 2 kids, a house, the hustle of everyday life. Surely, this would be the year we could reconnect and strengthen what had become a rather lukewarm marriage. Now, here's the thing about surprises, people either love them or hate them. My wife, Jenna, always said she loved surprises, but after 12 years of marriage, I knew her well enough to know that her enthusiasm for surprises often came with a hint of reluctance, as though she were secretly wishing for a quiet night instead of a big celebration. But today was supposed to be different. The kids, our 2 little ones, Lucas, 8, and Ella, 5, were all in on the plan, and there was something infectious about their excitement. They couldn't wait for Mom to come home and see the balloons, the streamers, the cake. So there I was, checking my watch, making sure everything was ready. As I glanced at the clock again, I realized Jenna would be home any minute. My heart raced in that good, nervous way that comes before something big, like the first time you propose to someone or, in this case, the first time you throw your spouse a party she didn't know she wanted. I heard the car pull into the driveway. The kids instantly sprinted to the door to welcome her with arms full of excitement. "Surprise, Mom," they yelled, their voices high with joy. I stood in the kitchen, waiting, a smile on my face as I thought about how happy she would be. Then, as if the universe had a wicked sense of humor, I heard Jenna's voice, but something in it sounded off, sharp, like she was rushing. "Ugh, really? I was just about to get some work done, John," she called out, her words catching me by surprise. The door swung open, and there she was, her eyes immediately scanning the scene, confused, perhaps a little too caught up in the chaos of the moment to see the joy I had carefully planned. She wasn't wearing the smile I expected. Instead, it was a frown, like she'd been somewhere she didn't want to be. And before I could even ask her how her day had been, I noticed something strange. She was holding a strange phone in her hand, her thumb swiping quickly across the screen. She didn't seem to notice me watching, but I could tell something was up. Mom," Lucas said, tugging on her arm, "don't you want to see your cake?" She finally looked up at me, and for a split second, I could have sworn there was a flicker of guilt in her eyes. But then, just as quickly, the mask slipped back into place. "Oh, I didn't realize you were so enthusiastic about this birthday thing," she said, trying to smile. But it wasn't her usual smile. It felt forced, like she was trying to cover something that wasn't right. "Everything's ready, babe," I said, my voice a little too cheerful. "I've got the party hats, the cake, everything. It's going to be great." And then, before I could say anything else, her phone buzzed again. She quickly stuffed it into her purse, and I caught just the tiniest flash of discomfort on her face. But, not wanting to ruin the moment, I pushed the thought aside. After all, today was about her. It was her birthday. Let's just get through this. It was supposed to be a happy occasion, a new beginning for us. We sat down at the dining table, and as the kids launched into their rendition of Happy Birthday, the room felt lighter, warmer. I watched Jenna, her eyes focused on the children, and for a moment, I thought we had reached that place where everything would be okay again. But the smile on her face, forced, tight, had started to unsettle me in ways I couldn't quite explain. What had changed? Why did she seem so distant? Just as the last note of the song faded and the candles were blown out, my phone buzzed. It was a text message. I glanced down at it, a simple notification from one of my close friends, John. But it wasn't just any message, it was a forwarded conversation. My heart sank as I saw Jenna's name pop up in the message preview. "Happy birthday to the woman I can't stop thinking about. Let's meet later tonight. We can't keep this up, not when he's watching." The words hit me like a brick, and I could feel the color drain from my face. My hand trembled slightly as I held the phone. Ella, ever the observant one, noticed my discomfort. "Daddy, what's wrong?" she asked, her innocent voice breaking through the sudden, suffocating tension in the air. I couldn't respond. All I could do was stare at that message, my wife, my Jenna, sending texts like that behind my back. And just like that, the surprise birthday party I had carefully planned turned into a nightmare I never saw coming. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The room was suddenly too quiet. The kids, oblivious to the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface, continued to giggle and chatter. They didn't notice the change in the air, the shift that made everything feel off kilter. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing in my ears as I stared down at my phone, the words in that message playing over and over in my mind. Happy birthday to the woman I can't stop thinking about. Let's meet later tonight. We can't keep this up, not when he's watching. The words were seared into my brain, and it took every ounce of restraint not to lash out, to confront her right there in front of the kids. But something in me, something that still cared about protecting the kids from whatever was falling apart, held me back. I knew I needed to keep it together, at least for a moment longer. Jenna hadn't noticed the look on my face. She was still trying to keep up the charade, smiling at the kids, telling them how sweet they were, how she loved her birthday surprises. But her eyes kept darting to her phone, like she was waiting for someone. I wanted to scream. How could she be so careless? She had no idea I had seen the text, but I had already pieced it together in my head. I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. All the late nights, the unexplained absences, the way she was always on her phone, always texting, and always pulling away from me. I had ignored it all, convincing myself it was just the pressures of life. I had been wrong. I forced a smile, trying to hide the fury building inside me, but I knew it wasn't convincing. I could feel my pulse racing, my stomach twisting in knots. Jenna caught my eye for a brief second, and for a split second, I thought I saw something in her expression, something like guilt, but it was gone so fast that I wondered if I had imagined it. She was good at hiding things. I had to give her that. But this was too much. The lie was right in front of me. She had been lying to me, and I had let her. Is everything okay, babe? She asked, her voice a little too light, too casual. It was a question she always asked when she knew something was wrong, when she knew I could sense the distance between us growing. I nodded, taking a deep breath. Yeah, just thinking, I said, trying to sound normal, but it came out strained, like a bad actor trying to pull off a role they weren't prepared for. She didn't buy it, but she didn't press. Ella, sweet little Ella, tugged at my sleeve. Daddy, can we have cake now? She asked, her eyes wide with excitement, completely unaware of the emotional bomb that had just dropped on me. I nodded, trying to focus on her, trying to keep the moment from spiraling out of control. Sure, sweetheart. Let's have some cake. I could feel my hand shaking as I reached for the knife to cut the cake, but I forced myself to calm down. There was no need to ruin the kids' birthday excitement. Not yet. As the kids dug into the cake, I couldn't stop replaying that message in my head. The reality of it settled in slowly, like a weight pressing down on my chest. My wife was seeing someone else. I wasn't blind. I wasn't stupid. But the pain, the betrayal, was like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just the cheating, though that was bad enough. It was everything that led up to it. The lies. The pretending. The years I had spent thinking we were happy, that we were building a life together. I glanced over at Jenna again, watching her as she helped the kids with their cake, her face carefully blank, her eyes not meeting mine. She was so good at pretending, at wearing the mask of the loving wife, the devoted mother. But underneath it all, I saw the truth. And it was destroying me. Mommy, can we play after we finish eating? Lucas asked, his mouth full of cake. Jenna smiled at him, a little too brightly, and nodded. Of course, sweetie. We'll have plenty of time for games. But I couldn't focus on the kids anymore. My mind was racing. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, a hot, gnawing feeling in my stomach. I needed to confront her, to demand answers, but I couldn't do it in front of the kids. I wasn't going to make this a spectacle, at least not yet. But the thought of how long this had been going on, how much I had ignored, how much I had been blind to, made me sick. The party dragged on, but I was barely present. I nodded along, smiled at the kids, said the right things when they asked me to join in their games, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. I was falling apart inside, but I couldn't let anyone see it. Not yet. Not until I had the truth. Finally, when the kids were getting tired and Jenna seemed distracted again, I excused myself, telling her I needed to step outside for a moment. I grabbed my jacket and walked out into the cool evening air, my breath coming in shallow bursts. I didn't know where I was going, but I needed to clear my head. The weight of it all felt suffocating. I couldn't stand being in that house anymore, pretending everything was fine when I knew the truth. Jenna was betraying me, and the kids were blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit. I stepped onto the porch and took a deep breath, the cool night air biting at my skin, and tried to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. I thought about all the moments that led up to this. Our wedding, the birth of our kids, the years we spent building a life together, and it all felt like a lie now. A joke. I was the punchline. How had I not seen it? How had I allowed myself to be so blind? The night stretched on, and every moment felt heavier than the last. I stood outside on the porch for what felt like hours, just staring at the stars above, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. The cold air bit into my skin, but it didn't matter. I wasn't sure if I was cold or just numb. The weight of the truth pressed down on me, suffocating me, and I couldn't escape it. I didn't know what to do next, didn't know how to process the fact that my wife had been unfaithful. How long had this been going on? Who else knew? How much had I been lied to? These were the questions that circled in my mind like vultures, picking at the pieces of my broken heart. I had always thought our marriage was solid, that we were partners in this crazy ride of life. But now, the foundation of everything I believed in had crumbled beneath me, and I was left standing in the ruins, unsure of what to rebuild. I stayed outside for a while longer, the cool night air doing little to clear the fog in my mind. It wasn't until I heard the sound of the kids playing inside that I snapped out of it. I needed to pull myself together. I couldn't keep hiding from this. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine for their sake while my world was falling apart. It wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to me. I needed to confront Jenna. I needed to get the answers I was searching for, and I needed to do it before I lost my nerve. I went back inside, taking slow, deliberate steps toward the living room, where Jenna was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine, her smile still painted on, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. I could see her trying to act normal, trying to pretend that nothing was wrong, but I knew her better than that. There was an unease in the air, a tension that couldn't be ignored. The kids were in the other room, playing some game I wasn't really paying attention to, and it struck me how utterly disconnected we had become. The thought of it made my chest tighten, and for a brief second, I felt that overwhelming sense of panic again, the kind that comes with realizing that everything you thought you knew about your life is nothing but an illusion. "Jenna," I said, my voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions crashing inside me. She looked up from the magazine, her smile faltering for a second before she regained control. I could see the guilt in her eyes now, that brief flash of panic that told me she knew I knew. I wasn't imagining it. This wasn't just my paranoia talking. This was real. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low but firm. She shifted uncomfortably on the couch, but didn't say anything. Her eyes flickered toward the hallway, probably hoping the kids would come to the rescue. But they were busy, and the silence between us stretched long and heavy. I took a deep breath and sat down across from her, my heart racing, my hands trembling slightly. "You think I don't know, don't you?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She froze, her expression faltering before she quickly masked it with a look of confusion, like she hadn't just sent a text to someone she was seeing behind my back. I wasn't buying it anymore. The lies, the excuses, the pretending, it was all over. She was caught. "John, what are you talking about?" she said, trying to keep her voice calm, but it wasn't fooling me. The tremor in her voice betrayed her. "What do you mean, you know?" I didn't hesitate. I pulled out my phone and showed her the message, the one that had shattered everything. "This," I said, my voice hoarse. "This is what I'm talking about." She stared at the screen, her face turning pale as she processed the words. I could see the panic start to rise in her chest, her breath quickening. The moment had arrived. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she looked down at her hands, her fingers nervously twisting in her lap. The silence between us grew louder, the weight of it suffocating, until she finally looked up at me. Her eyes were filled with shame, but also with something else, fear. I wasn't sure if it was fear of losing everything or fear of the consequences of her actions, but it was there. "John, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen." Don't. I cut her off, my voice sharp. "Don't try to make excuses. Don't apologize for something you've already done. The damage is done, Jenna. The truth is out, and no apology is going to fix this." The anger was starting to surface now, raw and unfiltered. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the sting of betrayal burning through me. I had always trusted her, always believed in us. But now, I was left with nothing but the cold reality of what she had done. She opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't want to hear it. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice low but filled with fury. "Who is the guy you've been seeing behind my back? Don't pretend like I don't know. I deserve to know the truth." Jenna's face twisted with pain, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She had destroyed everything, our marriage, our family, our life, and now she was going to have to face the consequences. But in that moment, I realized something else too. As much as I was hurt, as much as I wanted to scream and yell and make her feel every ounce of pain she had caused, I knew there was no going back. No matter what she said, nothing would undo what had happened. The trust was broken. The love was gone. And in its place was a bitterness that I couldn't escape. "It's John," she whispered, barely audible. I could feel my heart sink as the name hit me like a ton of bricks. John, my best friend. The guy I had trusted like a brother. The one I had invited into my home, into my life, and now he was the one who had been stealing everything I thought I had. The anger bubbled up again, fierce and unrelenting. I didn't know what I wanted to do more, run away or stay and fight. But I couldn't change what had already happened. All I could do now was process the mess she had left me with, and somehow figure out what came next. The words "John" and "my best friend" echoed in my head over and over, crashing against each other like waves against a rocky shore. It felt surreal, like some twisted nightmare I couldn't wake up from. John. My John. The guy I had shared beers with, laughed with, spent hours on the phone with talking about life, work, and everything in between. The guy I trusted enough to tell my deepest thoughts. The guy I thought was a friend, a brother, someone I could count on. And yet here he was, the one who had helped destroy everything. The betrayal was deeper than I could comprehend, and the anger inside me boiled over, rising like lava. It was all I could do to keep my hands from shaking uncontrollably as I stared at Jenna, my wife, the woman who had been my partner for over a decade. She had betrayed me with him, and the weight of that reality was suffocating. For a moment, there was only silence between us. I could hear the faint sounds of Lucas and Ella playing in the other room, their innocent laughter cutting through the tension like a sharp knife. They had no idea that their world was about to change forever. They had no idea that the people they looked up to, their mother, their father, were no longer who they thought we were. I wanted to shield them from this, to protect them from the truth. But there was no way around it. The truth was here, and it wasn't going away. "How long has this been going on?" I finally asked, my voice low, barely above a whisper, but full of the fury and hurt that had been simmering inside me. Jenna flinched at the question, but she didn't look away. She met my gaze, her eyes filled with a mix of shame and something else, something I couldn't quite place. "Since last year," she confessed, her voice cracking. "It started as something innocent. We were just friends at first, and then it just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far, John. I never wanted to hurt you." Her words were hollow, the apology empty. It was like a script she had rehearsed, something to soften the blow, to make me feel like it wasn't as bad as it seemed. But I wasn't buying it. I couldn't. How could I? She had betrayed me in the worst way possible, and now she was standing there, trying to explain it away like it was some kind of accident. I stood up abruptly, unable to sit still any longer. My legs were restless, my heart pounding in my chest. "Innocent? How the hell is this innocent?" I demanded, the anger in my voice rising, no longer contained. "You didn't just fall into this, Jenna. You made a choice. Over and over again. You chose to keep this secret, to lie to me, to my face, every damn day. How could you do this? How could you betray me like this with John? My best friend? The guy I trusted?" I can't even. My voice cracked as I realized I couldn't even finish the sentence. I was losing control, and I didn't care. The dam had broken, and there was no going back. Jenna stood up too, her eyes brimming with tears now. She reached for me, her hand shaking as she tried to touch my arm, but I stepped back. I couldn't let her touch me. Not now. Not after everything. "Please, John," she said, her voice soft, pleading. "I'm sorry. I really am. This was a mistake. A huge mistake. But it wasn't about you. It wasn't because I didn't love you." I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was a laugh of disbelief, a bitter, hollow sound that filled the space between us. "You don't get it, do you? It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter what your excuses are. The fact is, you've shattered everything. The love, the trust, the life we built. It's gone. And I don't know how to fix that. I don't know if I even want it anymore." The words felt like a weight lifting off my chest, but they also left a void, a cold emptiness that I couldn't fill. I had spent years building a life with Jenna, believing in us, believing in our family. I had believed in the idea of love, of commitment, of loyalty. But now it felt like I was staring into the abyss, and I wasn't sure how to crawl out of it. The life we had, everything I thought we were, was gone, and I had no idea how to move forward. Jenna stepped back, her face crumpling as she finally let the tears fall. Please, John, she said again, her voice trembling. Please don't leave me. I'm begging you. I know I've hurt you, but I want to make this right. I want to fix this, please. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. I took a deep breath, my chest rising and falling with the weight of the situation. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said quietly, my voice more composed now, but just as pained. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I don't know if I even want to try. Jenna looked like she had been slapped. She stumbled backward, as if the words had physically knocked her off balance. I could see the shock in her eyes, the disbelief, as if she hadn't expected me to react this way. Maybe she thought she could apologize, cry a little, and everything would go back to normal. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I can't fix this, Jenna, I said, my voice firm now. I can't fix you, and I can't fix what's broken between us. The damage is done. She stood there, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs, and for a moment, I almost felt bad for her. But then the anger surged again. I couldn't stop it. I had been the one who had trusted her, the one who had believed in her. I had been the one left in the dark while she carried on behind my back, and now I was the one left to pick up the pieces. I turned and walked toward the hallway, the sound of her sobs trailing behind me. But I couldn't stay in that room with her any longer. I needed space. I needed to think. My mind was racing, my thoughts scattered, and I didn't know what to do next. But one thing was clear, everything had changed. There was no going back. As I reached the door to the garage, I stopped for a moment, taking one last look at the family photos on the wall. The happy smiles, the moments frozen in time. It all felt like a lie now. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. And it would start with me. I grabbed my keys and stepped outside, slamming the door behind me. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I needed to get away. I couldn't be in that house anymore. Not with her. Not with the kids unaware of the storm that had just hit. I needed time to think, to breathe, to figure out what my life looked like now. I didn't know what the road ahead held, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Not with the wreckage Jenna had left behind. The drive was a blur, the miles passing by without me even noticing. I had no destination in mind, no clear path to follow. The only thing I could focus on was the weight of the last few hours, the conversation with Jenna, the crushing reality of her betrayal, and the realization that everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. The road stretched before me, empty and endless, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on some sort of runaway train, speeding toward an unknown destination I wasn't sure I was ready for. I had no plan. I didn't know what to do next. It was a feeling of being completely untethered, like I was floating in space with nothing to grab onto. I thought about going to a friend's house, someone who could give me advice or at least just listen. But then I remembered, John was supposed to be my friend. And now, he was part of the problem, the source of everything that had gone wrong. I couldn't talk to him. I couldn't trust anyone. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. Even when I was with Jenna, I never felt as alone as I did now. She had been the one constant, the person I leaned on when things got tough. And now, she had shattered that foundation, leaving me standing in the rubble of everything we had built. After what felt like hours, I ended up at a small diner on the outskirts of town. It was a place I'd been to once or twice, but never for anything serious. It was quiet, almost empty, and the hum of the neon lights above me seemed to match the hollow emptiness I felt inside. I sat at a booth in the corner, staring at the menu without really seeing it. I couldn't bring myself to order anything. My stomach was in knots, and the idea of eating was just too much to handle. I glanced out the window, watching the rain start to fall in heavy sheets. It was like the world outside reflected my mind, dark, stormy, chaotic. I could barely hold it together, but I was doing my best not to completely lose it. There was still a part of me that refused to let go, that wanted to believe I could fix everything, that I could somehow wake up from this nightmare and make things right. But the truth was undeniable. There was no going back to the way things were. No matter how much I wanted to, things had already changed. And I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I froze for a second before pulling it out. It was a message from Jenna. I stared at it for a moment, my hand trembling slightly as I swiped to open it. Please, John. I love you. I'm so sorry. Let's talk. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. How could she still say that? How could she ask for forgiveness after everything? I didn't know how to respond, and I didn't want to. I wasn't ready to face her, not yet. Not when the pain was still too fresh. I tossed my phone back into my pocket, rubbing my eyes as if that would make everything clearer. It didn't. The truth was, I wasn't sure if I wanted to fix it. I didn't know if I could. The trust was gone. The love I thought we had was buried under layers of lies and deceit, and I wasn't sure if I could ever look at her the same way again. I thought I knew her. I thought I understood her, but now I was left questioning everything. And it wasn't just Jenna. It was me too. How had I allowed this to happen? How had I missed the signs? The doubt crept in, gnawing at me like an unrelenting pest, and I couldn't shake it. I sat there for what felt like hours, my mind spinning in circles, trying to figure out what to do next. Every option seemed impossible. I could go back home, confront Jenna, and try to piece things together, but I wasn't sure if that was even possible. I could leave, get away, and start fresh somewhere else. But where would I go? What would I do? I didn't know who I was anymore, not without her, not without the life we built. I felt lost, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff with no idea which way to jump. Eventually, I paid for my coffee and left the diner, my mind still spinning, but with one thing clearer than ever: I couldn't keep running from this. I had to face it, no matter how hard it was. I had to figure out what was next, for me and for the kids. I couldn't stay in that house, pretending like everything was fine, but I also couldn't just walk away from my family. The kids were innocent in all of this. They deserved better than to have their world torn apart. I drove back home, the rain still pouring down around me, and when I pulled into the driveway, the house felt like a foreign place. The lights were on, and I could see the shadows of the kids playing in the living room, their voices muffled through the walls. Jenna was inside, waiting for me, no doubt wondering what I was going to do. She probably thought I was going to come in, calm and collected, ready to forgive her. But I couldn't promise her that. I couldn't promise that I would just forget everything and pretend like it hadn't happened. I sat in the car for a moment longer, just breathing, trying to prepare myself for what was next. When I stepped out, my legs felt like lead, and as I made my way to the door, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I was going to say to her, or what the future would hold. But I knew one thing: things had changed. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't undo what had been done. As I opened the door, I saw Jenna sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying, her face a mask of guilt. She looked up at me as I walked in, her hands trembling in her lap. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand, silencing her. I didn't want to hear it. Not yet. Not now. I need some time, Jenna, I said, my voice steady, but my heart a mess of emotions. I don't know what comes next, but I can't make any decisions right now. I need to figure things out. For me. For the kids. I need space. She nodded silently, her face crumpling again as she wiped her tears away. I walked past her, my feet heavy with every step, knowing this was just the beginning of something that would take far longer to untangle than I was ready for. But one thing was clear: I wasn't alone in this. I had the kids, and no matter how broken everything was, they were still my reason to fight. Even if it meant fighting for a future without Jenna.